Welcome to the Mental Load Fix, a 5-part series where we're going to unpack one of the biggest threats to modern equal partnerships. I'm Felicia Kashivaroff, an ICF certified relationship coach and founder of Tend Task. If you're watching this, chances are you or your partner anticipated creating an equal partnership. But somehow, one of you has become the default person who remembers everything. Doctor appointments, social plans, when the car needs an oil change, and what groceries you're out of. And that gap between your expectations and your reality might be creating some anger and resentment. Today, we're diving into what the mental load actually is, why it happens unconsciously, and most importantly, why this isn't about anyone being naturally better at remembering things. Let's start with some important definitions because there's often confusion about what we're actually talking about. The mental load, also called cognitive labor, refers to the invisible work of running a household and managing family life. This includes anticipating needs, researching options, making decisions, and monitoring progress. What makes this particularly challenging is that it's largely invisible and often goes unrecognized. Now, you might have heard the term emotional labor used interchangeably with mental load, but these are actually different concepts. Emotional labor involves managing your own and others' emotions, things like remembering to check in on how your partner's feeling or managing children's emotional needs during a tantrum. While these concepts overlap, cognitive labor specifically focuses on the thinking, planning, and organizing work. We'll discuss emotional labor in more depth in a future episode. What I've observed in my coaching work is that couples often struggle to talk about the mental load without defensiveness. One partner feels overwhelmed and invisible, while the other feels criticized for not being naturally good at something they didn't even realize was happening. And this is where it gets really interesting. Research by Allison Daminger at Harvard reveals that this division of labor isn't actually natural at all. It's the result of unconscious gender conditioning that we've all absorbed without even realizing it. Daminger's research breaks cognitive labor down into 4 distinct components, and this framework helps us understand why the mental load feels so overwhelming and why it's often divided so unequally. First, anticipating. This means noticing what needs to happen before anyone asks you to do it. Who in your relationship notices when you're running low on toothpaste? Who realizes that your child's birthday party is next month and that invitations need to go out? Who remembers that the car's registration expires this month? Second, research. This involves gathering information about options and solutions. If you need a new pediatrician, who researches which doctors are taking new patients and reads reviews? If you're planning a vacation, who looks up hotels and compares prices? Third, decision making. Someone has to choose among the options. Which pediatrician do we go with? What hotel should we book? What do we do about childcare during the school break? Fourth, monitoring progress. This means following up to make sure things actually happen. Did the pediatrician appointment get scheduled? Is the hotel reservation confirmed? Did the babysitter confirm for Friday night? What Daminger discovered in her research is fascinating and explains so much about why couples struggle with this. She found that in most couples, men are more likely to participate in the decision-making component. They'll weigh in on which option to choose. But women are much more likely to handle the anticipating, research, and monitoring. Then, couples call this equal because both partners participated in the decision. But as Daminger points out, decision-making is just one of 4 components. When one person handles 3/4 of the cognitive work, that's not actually equal participation. And this is where the unconscious gender conditioning comes in. Most of us grew up watching our mothers anticipate family needs, research options, and monitor follow-through, while our fathers were consulted for major decisions. We absorbed these patterns without anyone explicitly teaching them to us. In my coaching work, I see couples where both partners genuinely believe in equality, but they're unconsciously recreating these same patterns. The partner carrying the mental load often feels invisible and exhausted. The other partner genuinely doesn't understand what the problem is. They help when asked, they participate in decisions, They're not trying to be unfair. But when you understand that cognitive labor has 4 components, not just one, it becomes clear why someone can be helping with decisions, but still leaving their partner to carry most of the mental load. What makes this even more complex is that the person doing the anticipating often becomes really good at it out of necessity. Then it becomes easy to think, well, they're just better at remembering things, or they're more detail-oriented. But this is not about natural ability. It's about who's been given the responsibility, consciously or not. Now, you might be wondering, if we understand what mental load is and how it gets divided unequally, why is it so difficult to share? Why do couples struggle with this even when both partners genuinely want equality? There are 3 specific characteristics that make cognitive labor particularly challenging to redistribute. First, it's invisible. The work takes place internally, so it can't be observed as it's happening. Your partner can see you doing laundry or cooking dinner, but they can't see you mentally planning next week's meals or remembering that your child needs new shoes. This invisibility means the work often goes unrecognized and unrewarded. Second, it doesn't have boundaries. The worry and planning follow you everywhere, spilling over into work time, rest time, and leisure time. You might be in a meeting thinking about whether you remembered to pack something specific in your child's lunch, or lying in bed at night mentally reviewing the grocery list. This constant mental presence makes it exhausting in ways that physical tasks aren't. Third, it's never ending. The work of caring for loved ones is constant. There's always something to anticipate, research, decide, or monitor. Unlike physical chores that have clear completion points, cognitive labor continues as long as you're responsible for other people's well-being. These 3 characteristics explain why even well-meaning couples struggle to share the mental load equally. When work is invisible, it's easy for one partner to not realize how much the other is carrying. When it's boundaryless and never-ending, it creates a level of mental exhaustion that's difficult to communicate to someone who isn't experiencing it. If you recognize your relationship in this description, I want you to know that you're not alone, and this isn't anyone's fault. These patterns are the result of decades of cultural conditioning that most of us absorbed unconsciously. The good news is that once you understand what the mental load actually is and how it gets divided unequally, you can start making intentional changes. But it requires both partners to recognize that this isn't about one person being naturally better at managing details. It's about unconscious patterns that can be changed with awareness and effort. In part 2 of this series, we're going to dive into assessment, how to recognize when the mental load is unequally distributed, and what warning signs to watch for. We'll also explore a tool I created that helps couples understand their unconscious beliefs about gender roles and how those beliefs might be shaping their relationship patterns. But before we get there, I want you to start noticing these 4 components in your own life. Over the next week, pay attention to who anticipates needs in your household, who does the research, who makes decisions, and who follows up to make sure things happen. You might be surprised by what you discover. The mental load affects so many couples who genuinely want equal partnerships, and understanding these patterns is the first step toward creating real change. If this resonates with your experience, you're definitely going to want to watch the entire series. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss part 2, where we'll dive into how to assess your own mental load situation, and I'll share the gender ideology tool that helps couples understand their unconscious conditioning. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 4 components do you find yourself handling most often? Are you the anticipator, the researcher, the decision maker, or the monitor? Or maybe you're handling all 4. This is exactly the kind of invisible work I address systematically in my relationship coaching programs, because awareness is just the beginning. Creating lasting change requires intentional strategies and support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.